Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one where we get to talk to Matt Thraxton, a true international man of mystery, motivator, leader, and is the National Training Manager for Les Mills in China. Plus, Sasha is as humble as ever.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question because
Thank you.
And then we discuss what everyone Gen X is always thankful about.
I mean, we're all lucky that we are of the age that all the dumb shit we did as teenagers does not live forever in the social record, right? Yay, thanks to our mums for having us back then.
Okay, that's the show. Let's get it. All right, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one where we are talking to Matt Thraxton, a long-time friend of the show, long-time friend of ours, famous in the Les Mills family, and with us live today on the show, which is really cool. We get to explore where he lives and a little bit around his career and journey in leadership. But to help me with that discussion, Sash Coburn, how are you today?
So excited. And you, Matt, I was about to say you're the first man that we've interviewed on the show, but that's not true because we've had Arthur, but I'm very selective about the men I give any airtime to because I really feel like you've had all of history so far. So congratulations for making it. Making it onto the cut. We are actually really honoured that you've given up some time to speak with us. So looking forward to catching up.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you both very much. And yeah, no, it's a thank you from me to you for giving up your time. I'm excited, and that was I've had many introductions in my life, and that was certainly one of them.
Yeah, I was going to say so far, I don't think anyone will be listening if we just keep this up. So we better actually say something. Go, Ish. Tell us what we're doing.
Well, what we would like to do, because Sasha did a bit of a throw out to the universe the other day and said, hey, if you're listening to the show outside of NZ, tell us where you're listening from. And Matt, you're in Shanghai. What's that like?
Well, it's interesting. You've caught it at a very transitional time because we're just back into lockdown with the COVID. But a couple of days ago, Shanghai was absolutely fantastic. I love living in Shanghai. And I think one of the cool things is where I live is in a little local area, and I'm right on the border of what's the French concession. So I get a little bit of the Western life where I can go to a beautiful little coffee shop down the road and I can do some shopping in Western stores if I wish. But then if I just go slightly to the left, I'm in very old school, old fashioned China. And, and you've got the little tea houses and the old fashioned clothes. And then the little old lady will be outside shelling peas to make lunch later on in the day, and men are sitting outside playing cards under the tree, or mahjong. So it's a real interesting experience. I get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, because how long have you lived there now?
Almost 5 years.
I would not have been able to guess, how long you had been away because you lived in New Zealand for a while, but you're not.
Yes.
You're not a Kiwi. But I just want to say before we just find out a little bit more about your life is like, this can sound like we're going like, oh, what's it like in Shanghai? When, of course, lots of people live in Shanghai like every day and aren't going, wow, it's so amazing to live in Shanghai. The perspective, I suppose, that I want to put on that is having travelled a little bit during the time of COVID and met a whole lot of people from overseas, it's really struck me that from New Zealand, we have such limited ideas about how other people live. And so while it's not fascinating if you're from Shanghai to hear about it, it's interesting for us to just the things that we take for granted as being different. And you've had the experience of coming to New Zealand and experiencing us and the differences from your English life, and now a third kind of place that you live that's different. So it's that kind of observation. It's not just, everywhere's different, but everywhere is kind of different, right?
It's an interesting point because when I was in New Zealand, I actually, I guess in a sense, felt more like home. You sort of there's a lot more commonalities with the people around you. And I felt closer to my family, and I don't know why, because living in Shanghai now, I'm actually halfway closer geographically to my family and my home. So in an odd sense, I'm actually closer to home in terms of, mum, dad and family, but I do feel further away. And I guess it is because culturally it is so different. And one of the beautiful things about living here is it's so convenient. So everything here is done on the phone. And paying your bills, ordering food, ordering coffee, and it's just so much life on your phone. Everything's convenient. And yet when I then go back to the UK and I have to carry a wallet and pull out some actual money or a card and do things manually again, it's like a step back in time. So it's odd, you guys are living in the future time-wise, but it does feel that culturally, Shanghai or China, does move very fast, is very nimble, agile. In business, things move quickly, and historically we know how China since the war and through the Cultural Revolution and then through the manufacturing revolution here, with everything being made in China, they move quick on things, and it's an exciting place to be because of that. But it was a big change for me because I'm still a little bit old-fashioned English man.
That's funny that you said about everything being done on your phone, because when I was in Beijing, I think we were both presenting at a conference there, but I decided to venture out, and Sasha will laugh because my venturing out is the Gold Coast usually, but I get flown to these places around the world where I get to do stuff. And I thought, there's no way I'm coming to Beijing and not going out to experience something. So I jumped into like the minibus or something for the hotel. So that didn't cost me anything. So he dropped me off at this shopping centre, and I walked around for a while and spent any cash I had, and then I had to get home, you see, and I trying to wait, how do I actually get a cab to get back home? Two, they didn't even take credit cards, like no Visa, no MasterCard. I didn't have any cash on me. I thought, this is it. This is where I literally just disappear into the ethos of Beijing, because the further away you get from the airport in that CBD area, the less English was getting spoken. And yeah, I got back, but only just, and it was only because I'd taken a photo of the hotel and I was able to show the taxi driver the hotel, and he took me back, so that was good. But everything's on phones, right? Yeah,
very much so. And it's interesting because I still listen to a lot of radio, back in NZ or UK radio, and several months ago, there was having big discussions around this sort of cashless society and things being done electronically. And it felt like, back in the UK, there's still that worry that it's not safe, and there's still a concern, and people don't like doing banking on their phone or, exchanging money. There's still a resistance to that. And it was interesting because the whole time I've been here, the first couple of months was awkward, setting up the phone, getting the apps, downloaded and understanding how to use it. But now it's almost like I don't understand how you can't do it that way. It's so quick, so convenient, and sort of, touch wood, I've had no issues with safety and security. They're pretty hard on that sort of stuff here. So you do feel like everything's safe and secure, but it just makes life so easy. And I always liken it to the TV remote control. I was born in an era where we had to get up off the couch, walk over to the TV and press the button to change the channel. I couldn't fathom doing that now. Who would do that now? Who would get up and change the channel and not just use the remote control?
The thing that really gets me about the discussions around technology is I think when you logically work it through, you realize how much of our social fabric is built on a shared understanding that's not real. So what I mean by that is everyone in the UK that says, I don't understand how you can be using your phone electronically because we have this really amazing system called money. So if we break it down, my bit of paper, if it's red, buys me more than my bit of paper if it's blue. Like, how is that a system that's reliable? It only works because you and I agree that the red is worth more than the blue. Like, once you start to think about it, you realize that so much of our what we call normal life is based on this whole weird socialization and trust stuff that actually doesn't make any sense. But it only gets exposed when we're in another culture, I suppose.
Yeah. Don't they say you work your whole life to pay off some numbers in some bank account somewhere that's not even real money? It's just, that's it, just a loan, just against an asset.
So, Matt, what are some of the other differences or similarities that you've noticed going from England to New Zealand and now to China?
The thing I touched on there about how things are so agile, nimble and move so fast. It was almost quite scary how quickly things get done here. I mean, whether it's, you know, a road being built or a business getting started up, or even within in the industry I work in, the change of the landscape and how businesses have to sort of do a big step change or do a big pivot around how they operate to stay relevant and stay current. And I often wonder if that is kind of a cultural world that I sort of lived in, you know, in the old school days, where we always do things this way because that's the way we've always done them, you know, and people do hold on to that and its tradition and values. But, you know, our tradition and values really the things that, you know, work nowadays, even if they might have worked 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 1 year ago. So one of the big differences is the speed of change, and I've actually really embraced that. I love that now. It challenges me a lot, and in the fitness industry where I am, and with the virus that we have as well, you know, you've had to adapt very quick, or you become irrelevant, redundant, and out of work, you know, or out of business. And that's exciting. And I already sort of touched on how quickly things move in China, and with technology, how they're so advanced and so fast. So it does feel like you're in an environment where, if you have some really cool ideas and you want to put them on the table, they get listened to and they get actioned. Or if you want to do something that's completely against the norm, that you think, hey, let's roll the dice and try it, people will back you and people want to try it. You don't have so much of that resistance of, oh, you know, this isn't how we always do things, or I don't think that will work. So that feels very fresh and exciting. So obviously I haven't lived sort of back in my home country for a long time. I was in New Zealand for a while, Australia, the States before that. But from the contact I have with people, I still feel like that's something that's a big challenge in business, of breaking that mold and doing things differently. You know, people still struggle with that, having their voice heard.
Yeah, I mean, that fascinates me because it seems so kind of counterintuitive that on the one hand, we know that China as a country plays a very long strategic game in terms of its place in the world. But it seems like on a really micro level, whether it starts young or it's a high school education thing, there's just an expectation that things will change rapidly. And so everybody is open to new technology, new ways of doing things.
That's a really good point about the long game. I watched a documentary the other day. My mum recommended it, actually. It was funny. It's the 1,000 years of China history. And you know, with being overseas, I'm on my phone a lot, chatting to the family. And Mum said, I watched this documentary. She said, you really should watch it. It's about China. It's amazing. She said, I didn't realize how big the wall was. And I was like, yeah, Mum, it's massive. She goes, well, I've been telling all my friends that you walked it. I was like, what? Yeah, but I know you went to the Beijing Wall. And she goes, I've told all my friends that you walked it. And they were telling me, are you sure? She's like, yes, he's walked the wall. It's a third way around the world if you actually walk the whole thing.
You just did the width.
I just did the width. I did 3 laps there and back. But yeah, it's a really interesting documentary worth watching. I just saw it on YouTube. It's about an hour long, but it goes into how, you know, what you're talking about.
1,000 years in 1 hour. I mean, what does that tell us about our culture today, right?
And it's exactly that. These quick little bite-sized snippets of information that give you just enough knowledge that you can sound like you know what you're talking about. But if anyone else wants some in-depth conversation with you, you can't compete. But no, it is that long game, and how there's this real vision of you know, making China great and everyone working towards the same sort of cause, and kind of, in a sense, showing the world, you know, what we can do here, how we can be the quickest at this, the best at this, the fastest at this, elevate the whole sort of country, the whole flag, and people buy into it, you know, and people work for it. It's this commitment culture to the same cause. And what you find is the average person on the street, they have a house, they have food, they have a job, their kids go to school, life's really good. People feel like they're part of a successful country, and they're very proud of that. And it's almost like the reverse that we have in our Western world of conservative versus Labour, or Republicans versus Democrats, where we fight all the time and it makes no sense. You know, things just make a lot more sense here.
Yeah, fascinating.
Which I never would have said 5 years ago before I lived here, because the media we get in the Western world portrays China quite a lot differently, you know?
Yeah. See, one of the things that we talk about on the podcast is like career transitions. And, you know, Ash and I have talked about being, you know, I think we're a similar age. Can I just check, am I the youngest or am I the oldest? I mean, I look the best, that goes without saying. But actually, in terms of age, how old are you, Matt?
47.
And you're
48.
Yeah, and I'm 48. Yeah, okay. So, all right. So, Matt, you're a bit younger than us. Yeah, by about 3 months. But you've obviously made some decisions in your career in terms of willingness to move to new places, to try new things. when you look back and even look forward, have you been deliberate in the way you've built your career, or has stuff just happened to you? I mean, tell us a little bit about how you make those decisions about what's next.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because
Thank you.
in my role, I try and help coach people around, setting goals and action plans and making sure that daily you're doing the things that, can help you achieve. And it's all a very conscious enterprise. Whereas when I look back over my career, the sort of few moments where it's really changed rapidly, or there's been a huge difference, i.e. changing country, it's often been chance, and where a door's opened and you've chosen to take that opportunity. And I kind of do understand that if you do the hard work, if you prepare, put yourself in the right position, that those opportunities then start to come. So you have been involved in that in some way. And I think I'm similar to you, Sash, in that I don't buy into the, if you show this out to the universe, it will answer you and give you it back kind of thing, in this whole, dream about owning a boat and you'll own a boat kind of thing. But I do think that you understand, if you work hard, put yourself in a place, when an opportunity arises, yes, you deserve the right to be able to take that opportunity. Then you've got to go, am I going to do it or not? So the China one was actually Maureen Baker. So and I know you were all close friends with Maureen, and you had her on your show a while back. She phoned me up one day. I was living in Australia and working over there, and she phoned up and said, would you like to be the training manager for Les Mills? I don't know. I don't think so, because I'd never had China on my map as somewhere I wanted to go. And she said, well, look, they're looking for a training manager. Obviously, it needs to be someone that's got Les Mills experience, and also someone that's kind of traveled a bit around the industry and understands, but also someone that's had enough experience that they're not in a place where they need to be in the limelight anymore. Their role is to train other people. So I kind of fitted all these key, the key metrics that they were looking for. And she said, well, look, go over there and meet with the CEO, a lady called Jane at the time, spend a few days, have a chat, look around, see what you think. So if she hadn't have made that call and put my name in the hat, I probably would have never have seen the role or thought about it. And then when I got here, I met Jane, and I liked the vision for the business. And I guess coming from Australia, where the Les Mills world was very sort of saturated, or it's been around a long time, there was a risk of it feeling a bit stale. It's it's been in a lot of clubs for a long time. I didn't really see where my next sort of phase of development would be. But then this opportunity came up, and the market here in China was kind of an emerging market. And I could see all these little boutique gyms opening up. And like I touched on earlier, people having an idea to open a gym, and they just opened it, and someone backed them, or someone wanted 25 gyms. They wanted to be like the Starbucks of fitness, and they were on their course for it. And it was young. A lot of instructors were young, new, excited to be in the business. And it just felt like a really good opportunity. So obviously, I had to have some sort of reputation that Maureen felt comfortable putting my name in the hat. Then it had to be, are you happy to pack up and leave everything that you've got in Australia and move to another country?
Everybody understands that, Matt. Leaving Australia is, we've been there. I mean, wow. I mean, Ash loves the Gold Coast, but come on.
It's quite funny. Again, I sort of go back to stuff that my mum tells me. She's always been a big traveller, and she was training to be a journalist, and then she had children, and it all kind of stopped. So that was kind of my fault that stopped for her at the time. But she's always pushed us to travel and be a bit lighter in life and take more risks. And she's always saying to me, I'm too heavy and I'm too stressed and I think about things too much. Like, go and travel, live your life, be light. I spoke to her about it, and she was like, well, you don't want to be the guy that sort of doesn't take the opportunity, and then you see someone else in that role flourish and it's amazing, and then you regret not doing it. You're better off going there, and if it all goes, excuse the French, tits up, at least you've learned something and had an experience. So she's great for me, pushing me to do things like that. So that's where I thought, you know what, I'm going to throw my hat over the wall, and then I'll just work out how to get it later on.
Thinking about when you talked about that, it felt young and there were young people there. And I think one of the things that can be really good for us wherever we're at in the stages of our career is often we're looking forward and we're going, what's next? And so we're looking at people that are older than us, or they've been in their careers longer, and we're going, that's the next step for me. But I completely can identify with the idea that being around younger people keeps you fresh and energized, and there's a life about it, that if we're always just looking to what we're getting and not what we're giving, that you can end up kind of stuck a bit a bit with the same old, same old. And I get that there must have been a moment, when you're in a new country, a new environment, new people, that you just feel a bit renewed. It's a bit like the elixir of youth, I think, maybe.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program.
It's super exciting because I think the transition time was right for me, that I still felt sort of young enough that I've got the energy for the role, and I sort of felt semi-cool enough, that I'm still in the fitness industry and it's young and fashion, and people aren't yet looking at me going, aren't you a bit old for that? So I felt like I've got some relevance there, but then I have got enough experience and I am sort of old enough and mature enough that I can give back, and my role now is trying to create opportunities for these new people, or to spark some fire in someone else, or be lucky enough to say or do something that sort of profoundly affects another person and helps them. And like you say, the giving and the getting, like I learn a lot from it's scary how good they are. Like they come into the industry and they're able to pick up the experience of people like me really quick, but then they inject their own ideas and their own way of looking at things. And they kind of have that screw the system sort of mentality where they go, I don't care if that's how you always did it. This looks like a really cool way for me to do it. And they do, and they're successful, and they get successful quick. And I think a realization for me was just looking around and seeing, who the local talent is in like the sports arena. I'm still of that Roger Federer kind of era with tennis kind of thing, and Serena Williams, and that's sort of where I live, and, Rafael Nadal. But when you actually look now, all these young kids coming through that are 19, 20, 21 are the superstars. And in the skateboard world and in the surfing world, in the Olympics, like Eileen Gu, that just won the gold in the Olympics, they're like 20, 21, they're taking on the world. Yeah, that does excite me. And where I was in Australia, the fitness industry was quite my age, this sort of, I want to say middle age, but a lot of instructors were around 30, 40 years old, been doing it for a long time. Our programs have been in the clubs for a long time. It was a little bit same. It might be different now. They might have made some changes now, which would be great. But like you touched on there, Sash, coming here was a renewed vigor for me, and a huge new challenge. You just feel like you've got some purpose as well. Like you can see the changes that you're making, which inspires you to keep going and do more.
I love the that congruency between younger viewpoint and sort of older viewpoint kind of coming together, because actually what I think sometimes we forget is actually as we get older in our career, how many of our opportunities actually come from our existing relationships that we've formed over time, like Maureen reaching out and tapping you on the shoulder. And I think when you're younger, sometimes you're like, well, if I don't like it, I'll just go get another job, but actually the investment in our relationships so early on is where those opportunities come from, so that you are getting shoulder tapped into roles, and you are, being recognized for your skill set, and you have got that opportunity to give back. So I think it's a really important focus on both sides as we get older. Look for that appetite that the younger people coming into the market have, but also if you're younger in your career, understand that all those relationships and networks that you're forming now will be what catapults you into your future.
I think there's such a risk in people our age believing that we are deserving of the quote unquote success that we have, and that we somehow made it happen. And it's only when you look back that you are able to say, actually, that door was opened for me. That person gave me a nudge. That person took a risk. And yes, to your point, Matt, you've got to do the work to be ready. You don't know when the opportunity is going to arise. So we talk a lot about saying you don't know when your ship is coming into the harbour, but by golly, you want to be fit enough to swim out to it. Whatever that means for you in your context is to not have the opportunity arise and you go, oh, I'm not quite ready. I'm not match fit right now. To just be getting yourself ready so when the opportunity comes, we're all in a position to say, actually, yes, yes, I've been training for this thing I didn't know that was coming. And whatever your version of training is.
I love that point where there is a lot of chance and happenstance in people's life. You know, even if I'm sat on a train heading into work talking to someone, you find out people get careers and have amazing opportunities by chance so often in life. And when I left school, a friend of mine, Paul, he went into butchery straight from school and did years and years and years as a butcher. Made really good money, got really successful. Another friend was a chef. He went into being a chef, and they knew that's what they wanted to do and went straight into that career. And I had no idea. And so I kind of bounced around. I knew it was sort of sports and I loved coaching. And so I did a sports science degree and then went to the States to coach soccer. And so I had an idea where I wanted to be, but did I want to be a physiotherapist, a PE teacher? Did I want to open a gym? I wasn't sure. And all you do is you just keep putting yourself out there, keep doing the work and try and find these things you're passionate about. And like you said, Sash, when an opportunity opens, you know, you're very grateful for it and you haven't necessarily earned it, but you are ready to take it. And when I look back at starting in the fitness industry, a lady called Terry Hort, she was the manager of Gold's Gym in USA. So she was the one that said, hey, would you like to teach body pump, you know, the Les Mills program? And I said, no. So this was back in 2002. So if she hadn't have tapped me on the shoulder and said, I think, you know, you should go and do this thing, I would never have stepped into this arena, group fitness or Les Mills, or then traveled to New Zealand and Australia. There was a podcast recent. So Rachel Newsom and some other girls were doing a podcast about celebrating International Women's Day. And I was jumping in and listening and trying to understand more about, you know, the gender gap and all that sort of stuff, because that's, you know, I'm a.
Okay, so what's hard to understand, Matt? There's a gap. We don't get paid enough.
You just have to go there, Matt. Now she's beating that drum again.
Is I'm a white middle-aged man and I'm very privileged, but I don't know why.
Everybody hates me. What do I do?
I tell you what, the reason is because, and I have to understand this, that I've lived in a world that isn't necessarily the same as the world for other people. So my life has been full of powerful, influential women that have been my leaders. So Terry Hort was the first one, the manageress of Gold's Gym. There's Mid Thomas, Carla Fitzsimons, there's Maureen Baker, there's Jackie Griffin, there's Jane here. So all my key roles in my life and all those opportunities, it's been a female leader. And then I'm being told, well, female leaders don't get a chance in business. Well, I have hardly had any male leaders in my life. So it's interesting that I've just sort of lived in a world that I guess for me has been fortunate. And then like my mum is my biggest role model. So I don't really know what that says about me or my life, but each point of my career, when I've looked at these moments that have been influential to me, someone that's had a butterfly effect moment on me or a leader that I've learned a lot from, it's been 99.9% female. I don't know where the idea of the discrepancy comes in. So I try and read a lot more and study a lot more. And I know which side of the fence you're on, Sash. And so maybe in that conversation for another day, you can help me understand more.
But you were listening to Rachel's podcast about International Women's Day. And is that what sort of sparked those thoughts about the woman in your career?
Oh, yeah. And that was interesting because I found myself being very reflective. And I think part of it is because we're in lockdown again now. And so you got a bit more time and a lot more time to be present. And I'm kind of just noticing little things in my life and how I act, how I react, and behavior around me. And it was almost like it was a metaphorical sitting on the front porch, swinging in your chair. You know, I'm overweight, I'm happy, I'm old, I'm relaxed, I've lived my life, I'm drinking a whiskey, the kids are playing out there, and you're reflecting on your life. And I was looking at these moments and thinking, yes, I did set some goals and I had some aspirations and I planned for things. But when I look back at my profound moments or the things that I hold dearest, it's the little things along the way, the sort of journey that happened and these moments that you don't plan where someone else taps you on the shoulder or opens a door and you can't predict those. And like you said, Sash, you don't work for those or earn those. It just happens to happen. And I think that's really great because along the way, I've been guilty of not stopping and smelling the flowers and not enjoying those moments and recognizing them. And it's taken me until now, being 47 and being in my second lockdown in a country where the language is really difficult to learn, to find that. And as I was listening to Rach, and then Rach and I had a conversation afterwards, we were talking about that reflection on these moments and how the key people in my life were female and how they had a real big influence on me. And my whole purpose for doing what I do, my whole why, if you like, is I want to be the Terry for someone else. So where Terry Hort was the woman that started my career in this Les Mills world, anyone along the way that I've happened to influence or help or train or develop has been because of her. Now, she didn't know I was going to live in China in 20 years' time and be the training manager. She just said, I think you'd be good at teaching pump. So it was a real butterfly effect moment. And every day I wake up thinking I might say something to someone today that is the butterfly effect moment for them. Now, I won't know it, and it's not a big ostentatious act. I might just happen to tap someone on the shoulder or give someone a hug or buy someone a coffee or train someone in teaching a fitness program. And it might just be the thing that really makes a difference to them. And I think how dare I not show up and be that person that could influence someone else in that way? Yeah, and that was quite interesting to look back at that, and it's good because it holds me instead moving forward.
When you first told the story about Terry, you said no. So did she come back to you? Like, how did she hook you in? When you told the story, I've never met her that I know of, and that I remember. Sorry, babe, if it was special for you, I don't remember. And I can imagine her. There you are, looking magnificent. You know how handsome you are, Mr. World. So you're there, kind of doing your training, and she comes up and says, "Hey, you want to do group fitness?" And you say, "No," and she's like, "I'm not done with you yet." And so she must have come back again, or like, how did that play out?
Well, there was two things. So it was the classic cater to your ego, which, I'm not less shallow enough to admit that doesn't help move me in a certain direction. But she was like, no, look, see, I think you'd be quite good at it. Okay, I'm listening. All right. And then it was the second where she had told her husband that he was going on the course. And as a good husband, he listened and did what he was told, and it was the right decision. So we had Bobby, the husband, who was going, and I was friends with Bobby. And she kind of, stroked my ego a little bit and said, I think you'd be good. And so that was enough to get us on there. And there was 5 of us from this club that went. And what was really cool is we ended up being a real close-knit group of 5. So, we practiced together, and then we went, for dinner. We did launches of the new release together. Back then, Nike Shox was like the cool trainers that people wore. And online, you could order Nike Shox in whatever color you wanted. You could put your name on them. So we ordered those shoes. So when we did the launches of class, we all wore the same gear. So we had this real tight-knit sort of family. So that was really, really cool. But it was those 2 key points that kind of got me over the line. And for me, when I did the training, it was just a really cool 2-day experience. So that's what sort of got me bitten by the bug. So the tap on the shoulder, and then the 2 days really cool experience where the trainer delivered a great training. And then as a close-knit sort of group of 5, we then went on this journey together. But at the time, I knew nothing about Les Mills or New Zealand or anything else in the sort of group fitness world.
Tell me you'd heard of New Zealand, though. I mean, you're English. You'd heard of New Zealand.
Yeah, that's
your ancestors did come and wreak havoc on our ancestors. You do know that. Right?
I know. We play a sport that you keep beating us at very often, and you do a funny dance before you play it. Yeah. No, yeah.
And I love that power of someone else believing in you, right? Yeah. So even though there's a bit of an ego stroke that says, I think you'd be good at that. One of the things that I talk about with my kids and teachers at their school, you go to parent interviews and you come away sometimes and you think, I don't think they even know who my kid is. Because what we want teachers that call out to the very best of what our kids are capable of and say to them, come and be that person. I see potential in you. Come and be all that you can be. And it's teachers with teenagers, but it's managers and colleagues and workmates and friends with each other. I mean, this whole thing, we talked about gender, but we're talking about the Will Smith Oscars. That just happened yesterday from when we're recording. All of us have the opportunity to call our friends into being the best version of themselves, whatever that looks like. It's not about being all woke. No one can have fun anymore. But, your friend that tells the racist joke or that makes the off-color comment or that is demeaning about someone who's put on a bit of weight or whatever whatever your thing is, we've got the opportunity to say to each other, you're better than that, man. Come and be this version of yourself. And I think that's a gift that we can give each other. And one of the things that I like about my friendship with you, Matt, is there's something in you that challenges me to be better or to be the best version of myself. And I love that. And the same with you, Ish. It's like if we can get people in our lives that encourage us to be as good as what we can be or to be capable or to live up to our capability, I think surrounding ourselves with those people is really good and being that for other people. Thank you for coming to my church. I've
just come off a 4-week 4 weekends in a row working where I've been doing training and development with the team here in China, my trainer team. And we look a lot about culture. And so I'm doing a thing on commitment culture at the moment, making sure we're all, going in the same direction, doing the same behaviors. We understand why and all that sort of leadership stuff. But one thing that came up was we did a little bit about the Lencioni model of those 5 dysfunctions of a team. And obviously, as you both know, trust at the bottom is key. And I just keep coming back to that. So the example you made there, Sash, with you and I, and same with Ish, and I try and have this with everyone I'm in contact with. It doesn't work with everyone, but when you do get that trust, then yes, you can have that robust conversation. You can challenge someone. You can speak freely. What I see is so many relationships, people don't have that trust, whether it's with their boss, whether it's with their family, their friends. They're in this fake equilibrium where they don't feel confident to stand up and speak and challenge for fear of whatever that fear may be. And it's a really hard thing to get. And I just don't think many people do have it. We talk a lot about it, but do you really have trust where you can call out your friend for a racist joke, or do it in front of other people? Can you challenge your partner for something they've done that you feel isn't right, a behavior that's not right? Even on Twitter, there's a lot of stuff on Twitter and it's very binary at the moment. You have to be either for Will Smith or against him. It's like, no, you can feel like he's a bloody good actor that deserved that Oscar for that role. And he did a stupid thing where he slapped someone that probably wasn't cool. Both those things can exist. It doesn't have to be cancel Will Smith because he slapped someone, But when you've got that trust, you can stand your ground and speak up. And I think when you were talking then about that, that's what it does boil down to, that we all have that trust in our group of 3, for example, where we could challenge each other and try and challenge each other to be better. And you ask a question, okay, why do you feel that way? Well, explain that to me. And you want to know, you want to understand. And I had a situation recently, one of my trainers, Luna. So when I delivered this session around commitment culture.
We're going to call her Luna. I don't know where the story's going.
We
might call her Mary by the time this goes live.
But I delivered this session around, commitment culture and doing the behaviors and humility and team first and stuff. And then she stood up and said, okay, Matt, so tell me, what have you been doing to live those values and behaviors? And I was like, whoa, I like that, and that was in front of the group. And so I answered the question. And afterwards I thought, that is because we have a really strong trust, and she can challenge me in front of the room, not to try and show me up, but because she knows I'm going to give her an answer that helps her understand better, and it's going to help the group cement their learning. And I thought that was really brave, because how many people would stand up there were 60 of us in this training, and I'm at the front delivering the training. She's one of the trainers. How many people would feel confident to stand up and do that to, technically their boss? And that was a moment that made me realize, do I do that to other people? Am I brave enough to stand up and call people out? Well, many times, no, I haven't, but I can be better at it. And I guess if there's a takeaway from this around building that trust, it's putting in the work to build that relationship, to find that place where you do feel comfortable, challenging people, because we do want people to be better. You're doing it to help that other person improve. It's a win-win. But bloody hell, it's hard to do, and not a lot of people are out there doing it.
And the flip is when it happens. So you're up there at the front of the room and it's happening, and to be noticing your response to that. Because I'm going to call you out. I'm going to call you out. Someone calls me out. I'm like, sorry, no, I do the calling out, not that the calling out happens to me. And so you have that whole kind of. For me, it's been a process of maturing where I've got better at that over time, but it's still a work in progress for me, where someone takes the time, they have that courage to speak into your life, to give you that feedback, and you just notice the extent to which you resist it, or you want to justify it, or you want to start explaining why you were like that, rather than just saying, I'm going to sit with that, and do I need to apologize, or do I just need to make better choices next time, or choose to handle it differently?
If we think back to that example with Chris Rock and Will Smith just the other night, with all the drama going on, but in his speech where he, didn't apologize, but, was sorry. And he said what Denzel Washington had said to him, that basically, at your highest peak is when the devil shows up. And I think so many times we just get so full of our power or in the position, and that humility or that understanding that really we're there to create opportunities for others. But yeah, when I heard that, actually out of everything that went on, that was the thing that stuck out for me, was that statement, and that someone just speaking into him going, watch out.
Snap, man. I hadn't heard, maybe I'd heard that expression before, but I don't remember that I had, and it just hit me like right in here. It's a little bit like pride before a fall. It's but it's expressed more beautifully than that. And I thought, oh, how true. And it's not that, when things are going well, be careful because something bad's going to happen. It's like, just switch on.
And I think for us on the sort of receiving end of seeing that happening and all the judgment that's sort of poured out on Twitter, it pulls me back to empathy. And I think the two things, I know these words do get thrown around a lot, empathy and vulnerability. And I think I never really understood them for a long, long time, and I've read Brene Brown, the vulnerability, and I try and watch a lot of TED Talks and try and learn about it. And I think that it's what you said, Sasha, about the maturity of growing up. I think you do start to understand it. And this is where I feel comfortable saying, Will Smith can be, a good man that's done something stupid. We don't know the pressure he's under and what the story or the nuances around the history between all the stuff that's gone on there. So for us to suddenly, slam him for that, there's no empathy there, and I think we can all get by a little better in the world if we do have a bit of empathy and go, well, hang on, there's more to this. Let's think about what he might be going through. And then that line that Denzel Washington said, that's a great line, and it is, that's probably exactly where he was. Huge amounts of pressure in his career, stuff going on in his relationship. It's the lights. It's maybe he felt the need to defend his wife for some reason. We don't know. We can only speculate. But if we can just empathize and say he clearly is going through a lot of stuff, I doubt if he had that moment again, he'd go, yes, I would want to walk up and slap the guy. So he'd probably feel bad for it. He has since apologized. People are allowed to make mistakes. I'm certainly not perfect. And so the vulnerability thing in this leadership space comes in where for years, I always wanted to be the go-to guy. I wanted the answers. And if you asked me a question, I wanted to give you the answer. I didn't want to coach you for you to find the answer. I'm the man. That was the sort of thing I had going on. And I wanted to collect as much knowledge and experience. And I was proud that someone came to me and I could be the solution, which, of course, as we know, is BS, right? The idea is you're supposed to help someone else the way they want to be helped, to find their course of action and their path, not just answer the question for them. So the vulnerability for me was around admitting that I don't have all the answers, admitting that I've done something wrong. I might have made a bad choice, a mistake, and owning it. And I think what's happened along the way is then more people do trust you, because it's not the facade that Matt knows all the answers. It's the real story that Matt does have quite a few answers, but he does make some mistakes. He's always trying to be better. But what you'll always get is honesty and authenticity. So if you talk to me now, it's the same as if you talk to me in a business setting, in a social setting, if I'm at work, if I'm training other people. And I think that's where I can sense in other people, if they don't have that empathy or vulnerability characteristic trait, that's the thing that I don't seem to connect with them very well. And when I try and, I can't quite put my finger on why I'm not resonating with that person or why the trust isn't there, that's often what it is, that they aren't able to be vulnerable in that real sense. And they don't seem to have that empathy. They want to be very judgmental and binary on other people. And we seem to live in a world where that fissure, that gap in the middle is just getting bigger and bigger. And we're all on each standing on our side of the canyon, shouting abuse at the other side of the canyon and digging our heels in more, which the outlook for that's pretty bleak.
One of the things that I read, I'm going to go back to the Will Smith incident for a minute, is that because Chris Rock, the joke was about her alopecia, right? So she has a medical condition, which means Jada doesn't, she has hair loss. And so there's this whole other side where people are going, not necessarily condoning the violence, but condoning the standing up for someone making a joke again at the expense of somebody who has a medical, condition. We think back to Trump kind of doing his bullying of the journalist, and that's all part of a spectrum where you go, it's such an easy target. And I suppose for me, having had that, when I had chemo and I had no hair and I was bald for that time, I can kind of imagine if somebody on a global scale was making fun of me being bald while I was having chemo. I don't know that Chris, my husband would have got up and punched someone, but I know that there would have been a whole lot of anger going on, and disability advocates are saying, this is great. Stop making jokes at our expense. Go and make jokes about, that whole idea that comedy should be punching up. And what I love about that discussion goes exactly to your point about binary thinking, that goes, you either must be one thing or another. And we're dealing in absolutes as if there are absolutes. And I think the world is much more nuanced and complex, and it's okay to say, I've got a nuanced view on this. The possibility of redemption for people is always there. And we talked last week about the weight that we attach to things, where we go, if somebody makes one bad call, now we're cancelling them, they're a terrible person. It's like, wow, man. I mean, we're all lucky that we are of the age that all the dumb shit we did as teenagers does not live forever in the social record, right? Yay, thanks to our mums for having us back then.
I think this Will Smith incident is really interesting. I don't know if it's just the timing of it all or the issues that it raises, but like I said just earlier, that I couldn't sleep last night. I was just wrestling with it, and I was on Twitter talking to some people, and I was talking to friends, and the things. So one thing is, are any jokes off limit? So I'm a huge fan of Ricky Gervais, and I know Ricky Gervais is of the standpoint that there's nothing off limits for comedy. You can do anything with comedy, but he also agrees with you, Sash. You want to be punching up, not down. So yes, you can make jokes about anything, but for example, the Chris Rock joke just probably wasn't that funny, just wasn't that good a joke, so that's all it was. But
it wasn't worth it. The payoff wasn't worth it.
Yeah. And it might have been that you could have constructed a joke that included Jada Pinkett Smith somehow that might have been a funny one, if there was a bit more, intellect or cerebral around it. So then you've got, can comedians say any jokes they want, yes or no? Then you've got, well, have we got the right to be offended and then take action? So, because if that happened in the streets, if just a random guy, putting it in an old school way, if some bloke comes up and slags off your missus, you've got a right to slap him in the face and go, hey, mate.
Your wife's ugly.
Yeah, pull your head in. There's nothing wrong with a little slap. Calm down, mate. That's not cool. But then we can't condone violence. It's okay, well, is that really violent? Are we talking about, is it violent? He wasn't punched. It was a slap of, you need to stop talking. Should he have done it in a public setting? Then you've got, well, does Will Smith have to defend Jada, his wife? Is she not robust enough a human to stick up for herself? Does she look at her husband and go, you've got to go and slap that man? Is it her fault now that he's stood up? Because that's what people on Twitter are saying, that he laughed at the joke. She gave him the side eye and he went, oh, I'd better stick up for my wife. It's like, no. It's not the woman's fault that this happened. Like, let's take that out of the equation. But it's just raises so many questions.
Microcosm of stuff, right?
Yeah. But it's exactly that. It comes back to, and I had this with the Joe Rogan thing, and I think maybe you and I are slightly different on the Joe Rogan thing. I don't know where Ish stands with that, like canceling Joe Rogan and that whole debacle that happened. But I do believe in free speech, and then yes, there are consequences of that speech. We should self-police and monitor and understand that you can say some stupid, mean stuff, and that's not cool. But it isn't binary, and I think this is just another example of humans going into that binary thinking. And even you see on Twitter, they block accounts and delete people for having an opposing view. And it's like, no, I want all the people with an opposing view on my account because I want to understand, I want to have someone that is deeply religious because I'm not religious. I want to have a conversation with those people. I've got friends that are vegan. I love meat. I've got friends that, believe it or not, I've got friends that don't drink coffee. I welcome them as friends. They have a different viewpoint.
No, come on.
Who are these people?
You put a line in the sand.
It's got to be a line.
I was right there. I was like, sensitive New Age man, you are a man for the millennial. I love hearing the way you think, the issues you're grappling with, and then you just went too far.
That's the only reason Will Smith has still got some credibility is he does drink coffee.
So. That's all he's got going for him now.
But what were your thoughts on that? Like, because I mean, around what you think. Not the coffee thing. The Will Smith. So first of all, I got a message from my friend Phil that lives back in the UK now. He's a Kiwi boy, and he just sent a message: Will Smith, right or wrong?
Oh,
which was and this guy's a super intellect. He's read thousands of books. He's started his own company, and I know when he does that, it's like, okay, we're on for a deep conversation. But my instant reaction was, well, yeah, he shouldn't have got up and slapped him. That was probably an uncool action, and it was a poor joke. So two people have done two stupid things. Let them apologize and let's move on. What did you think when it first came out?
So I obviously just heard everyone talking about it, And I was like, what? And then I saw a couple of people's stories and they're like, what the heck, and started commenting. And so I just watched it and then just decided not to get involved and just see how it played out. And I just want to see what everyone else thought, which is kind of what I did with the Joe Rogan thing as well. I just wanted to see it play out. I was interested in how Brené Brown took it. But, I don't know. I just kind of at that stage now where I just want to react less and I just want to just let stuff happen. And so some would say that I should have an opinion and maybe be out there, but I'm like, I don't know, plenty of people smarter than me have got better opinions than me, so I'm going to default to them and then, just watch it all play out.
That's so wise-ish. That's so wise. That's like the old man on the hill that goes, we're going to wake up tomorrow and there's going to be something new going on. And I don't need to wrap up my emotions to go through all of this as if it somehow personally affects me. And on the Joe Rogan thing, I mean, Ish and I are just jealous of him because more people listen to his podcast than listen to this. And beyond that, don't give it too much thought. What a treat to be able to spend time with two of my great friends and just to hear, Matt, about your life transitions, some of the choices and the decisions you've made. I love the way that you think and perfect timing for us that you have been reflecting on some of this stuff, and a real treat for those of you who don't know Matt to have had an insight into some of his thinking, and just so wonderful to hear men in particular who take a moment to have an interior life, to think more deeply about their place in the world and their purpose and what they're here to do. So thank you, my friend. It's been a joy. We love you.
Oh, thank you very much. I am obviously grateful for the opportunity because I love spending time with cool people. And whenever either of you say, you want to have a chat or a catch up, whether it's a 1 minute or a 30-minute podcast, I always look forward to it because I know that I'm going to be inspired and live the rest of the day in a lot more positive state. And for me, it's something I need to thank Ish for because many, many years ago when I lived in New Zealand, I was working at Les Mills and Ish was doing some coaching with me around me trying to set some goals. And I don't know if he remembers this, but one of the things was on our coaching, you talked about what is the result of an interaction with Matt Thraxton, whether that's a short term, medium term, long term. When someone has a conversation with you, do they leave that conversation better for entering it, or are you draining them of energy? So it's this concept of this human interaction and people leaving it in a better space. And I always kept that with me because I always want to be that positive influence for others. And that's exactly what you two are for me. So I know that the rest of my day is going to be pumped because of having this moment, I don't know if it goes the other way around. I don't know if you feel inspired by some of the...
Absolutely, I'm thriving.
But no, it's cool. And I think that's a really cool takeaway for anyone if they haven't learned that concept. It was, something that you taught me long, long time ago, Ish. Because no one wants to be around an energy vampire, do they? So...
All right. No, thanks, Maddie. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Thanks, Ashi. You're a legend as always.
Love you guys.
Okay, have a good afternoon, evening.
Will do. See ya.